Hey, good morning. Really good to be with you today, and thanks for joining us online. You know, on this past Sunday, we finished our fourth week in our series, Forward in Faith, and the headings we've been looking at in week 1, we talked about the storm and the disciples in the boat. In week 2, we talked about change, and we said be strong and have courage. In week 3, we talked about rest, and we talked about Elisha under the bush in 1 Kings 19. In week 4, we talked about renewed vision and the life of Jonah and how he disobeyed God, but having his vision renewed by God to do what he had commanded. I wonder which one had helped you most over these last 4 weeks. Which one spoke loudly to your soul? You know, we're on a journey of faith, and we've reached the end of another month and a new one has just started. And we have already started to see the signs of change, and I have no doubt that over the next few months we will see so much more change. We're not there yet, but change is here to stay. It's good to know that in the middle of all of this change, we serve a God who does not change. And I want to draw your attention today, very briefly, to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. And I'm going to read it for you. You might have a Bible, but I'm going to read it for you. And it says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there is a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them in, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. You know, these words are a great reminder that everything has a time, that everything has a moment, that everything has a season. But what do we know about these seasons? You know, for Jonah in the passage that we read on Sunday, it was his moment, we could say, to fulfill God's calling. But at first he failed by getting in a boat in the wrong direction. God restored him, of course, and eventually Jonah did the right thing. Seasons, moments, opportunities are all very important. They're turning points in our lives, and they need to be approached with godly wisdom. So I want to share with you very quickly this morning 3 things that I know about seasons, and I believe this is going to help us as we navigate and continue to move forward. Number 1 then, trouble comes when we try to do things out of season. You know, we can do the right thing in the wrong season and still be wrong. We can do the right thing with good motives, but misunderstand the times that we're in. The right thing done at the right time will bring good results. Jonah was okay getting on a boat to Tarsus on any other day, but on that day he was going in the opposite direction to God's call. It's a great thing to buy a friend a birthday card, but it's not so smart to buy them a birthday card if it's not their birthday. I mean, of course it can be funny, but you know what I mean. It's just the wrong thing at the wrong time. Friends, we need the wisdom of God right now to know what season we're in, and then we have to respond accordingly. Remember, we said trouble comes when we try to do things out of season. Good old King David, here it is in 2 Samuel chapter 11:1. You may remember this story. It says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's mighty men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Amorites and besieged Rahab, but David remained in Jerusalem. David remained in Jerusalem. In other words, he stayed at home. And of course we say, well, what's the problem? Poor David, he's probably tired, he needs a rest. But this is springtime. This is the time when kings go off to war. So David did what was right, maybe staying at home, but He was confused. He was in the wrong season. Of course, the result was he fell into sin with Bathsheba. Trouble comes upon us when we try to do things out of season. So that's very, very important to remember this morning. Secondly, I want to say to you today that seasons change. Just like the weather, we don't stay in the winter forever. Seasons change, and I'm sure we're very glad about that today. It's been a long winter, hasn't it? And officially, winter ended at the weekend, and we all gave a cheer and a clap for that. You know, in our lives, we go through seasons of pain and suffering, but also a change in seasons brings hope and rest. The change in seasons should give us hope that no matter what has happened, something new is emerging, a new season. This past year has been extremely difficult for everyone, but a new season is being ushered in. A new season is being ushered in. Spiritually, we are in a changing season. God's been at work in our lives all through lockdown. I believe this new season will build on the foundation of the previous season, a season where we've learned so much about God's faithfulness and God's love and his grace and his goodness towards us. So seasons change, and right now things are changing. Things are changing, but God never changes. You know, the third thing I want to leave with you today, if you're still with me, and I hope you are, the third thing is different seasons require different resources and different actions. Different resources and different actions. Not every season is tough, and I'm glad about that today. Not every season is filled with pain. Some will be. We have to have wisdom to know what resources are needed in each season. You know, if we were to take an example today, the farmer takes in a harvest in the autumn to cover the winter. And when we recognize a season, then we can make wise choices in that season. To illustrate that very simply, I could talk about my own life and talk about when I preach. You know, when I preach for a month, that's my preaching season. That becomes my top priority. And I have to say to you, in that season, I don't allow anything extra to go in the diary. My top priority is my preaching for that month. That's the season I'm in. Or if I want to make any announcements to the church, I try not to do that in July and August. Well, why is that? Well, it's simply because during July and August, those are seasons of rest for the church. I recognise that a lot of people go away, and that's just not a good season to make announcements. And if I ignore that and make the biggest announcement of the year in August, there's a word for that, and it's called foolish. I also know it's a time to get work done that may have been left behind in a busy season. So understanding the times and seasons is in our lives is really, really important. Really important. The quiet seasons, the recharge seasons, the battery charging seasons, dealing with outstanding work, those seasons are really important, and important to know when they are. Even developing good habits, perhaps through the quieter seasons, can carry us through more challenging seasons. So again, I say to you today, my friend, different seasons require different resources and different actions. We can ignore that, but if we do so, we're going to reap a harvest of problems, not a good harvest. So finally, to close this today, God is the God of every season of our lives. We can declare that today. God is unchanging. God is faithful. God is totally dependable. And I want to encourage you this morning that as he has walked you through one season, he is going to be with you in the next. You know, seasons in God can be exciting. They can be fruitful. And we need to make the most of every opportunity that God gives to us. Yes, there is a time for everything and a season for activities under heaven. And I really pray this morning that whatever season you find yourself, even right now, whatever season you find yourself, even right now, as you transition from one season to the next, that you will always meet with the living God in that place and experience his peace. That as you enter a new season, you will find that God is already there, waiting for you with wisdom and direction. That however dark the season may be, you will always experience his light to guide you. Find it in every season, Let's make it our habit to give him praise, to give him worship. For truly, he is the Lord of my seasons. And no matter what may come, I will lift up his name. Amen. May God bless you richly today, and have a great rest of the week. Look forward to joining you again online on Sunday for another fantastic celebration. God bless you and your household too. Praying for you often. Bless you.